A while ago, I discovered a fabulous little piece of music that I'd like to introduce you to today. Now, if you're looking for something that's a little, shall we say, less played than a lot of the things that we hear, then this could be right up your street. It's the Nocturne by Paderewski, and not only is that a lovely piece of music, but in terms of helping us with our technique, it's great for practicing voicing our left hand. Are you sitting comfortably? Then let's begin. Hi, this is Tommy with Tommy's Piano Corner, the place for returning pianists or indeed anybody who loves piano to share tips and ideas of how to get the best from this great hobby. If it is your first trip here, then please do think about subscribing. Just hit the little icon in the bottom right hand corner of your screen now and it's all done for you. Now, I love playing nocturnes, and of course Chopin's are perhaps the first that always spring to mind for most of us, I guess. However, lots of other composers also wrote nocturnes. This particular nocturne by Paderewski is actually a little gem. Now, I think the notes themselves aren't sort of massively difficult. However, when I started to learn it, I felt that there are quite a few little details that, if we take them into account, make it sound just even so much better. Now, before we dive into the tutorial, I think one thing that's worth pointing out is that what's good with this is you can actually listen on YouTube to videos or recordings, at least of the composer himself, Paderewski, playing this. And it's quite interesting because you might find his interpretation seems a little strange to us because he uses a lot of anticipation, which is where one hand plays slightly in advance of the other. And he also arpeggiates a lot of chords where in his printed text, they're just written as blocks. However, the anticipation stuff is something that, it used to be done a long, long time ago and is now less common. And I've put an article that I found on the topic and I've linked it in the video description below for you. In terms of other great recordings of this, there is one by Stephen Huff playing it at Carnegie Hall. So I've also linked that in the video description for you too. Let's then start with the structure of this piece. As you can see, it's in B minor, it's in 2/4 time, and it's got just over 70 bars. So all in all, it comes out around 4 minutes, which is a nice, comfortable length. We have a main theme, which is repeated, albeit differently to start. Next, we have a second section where our left hand takes the melody. This is then followed by what I'll call a bridge. Which then takes us back to another version of the main theme with a nice little ending. In terms of the skills we can develop with this piece, I'd call them out as being voicing and accompaniment, as we're quite used generally to voicing the melody, crossing the hands, and of course voicing a melody in the left hand. This tutorial will focus on these three main things as we work through the piece. As I often recommend, I'd start learning this from the end, in fact. And you'll find that even at the ending is where we start to have to think about how we're going to voice that left hand. As we look at the notes themselves, it looks like a bass note with then a set of chords. And I guess we can play these, just as block chords. However, within these chords we have a secondary melody which is made up of the moving notes played predominantly by the thumb. However, if we voice them, it sounds much more interesting. However, it doesn't stop here. As we move to the next measure, we have to decide what we think needs to be voiced here too. So in measure 69, to me at least, a nice solution is to voice the F, B flat, A, G and G. In the following bar, we can voice the same notes, however an octave lower. In bar 71, notice this little trick with the F natural here. Even though it's written on two different staves, it is actually tied. And you could use a little theatrics here as you substitute the left hand for the right hand on that F. Finally, watch for the pedal here. As you can see, we have the F held throughout whilst the pedal is lifted as the chords change. Once you've decided which notes you intend to voice, I'd recommend highlighting them to remind yourself. And this, of course, is a great advantage of using an iPad. Now then, let's look at what I'm calling the bridge, which is basically bars 42 to 53. To me, again, the main voice in here is in the left hand, and the way that we bring it out is what adds to the beauty of this piece. Note the progression here. I try to bring out these thumbs above everything else. Note that we are crossing the hands here too, so pay great attention to land the left hand securely on each side. I found that adding the voicing caused me to quite often miss the left hand landing back in the tenor. For me, the best way of practicing this was always taking it in short sections as written. Practice as slowly as you need and wait until you hit the notes without any hesitation at all. If you've not played much music where the hands cross, I'd recommend also practicing other things that require crossing the hands, as I found it really helps to play music with similar technical problems as we get to grips with things. So for example, you might look at number 10 from 12 Little Pieces and Preludes by Bertini. One last tip is that for my smaller hands, I decided to actually play the C with the left hand here, even though on the score the left hand isn't marked until the following note. I simply found that the spread was uncomfortable and error prone. Now then, let's have a look at the second theme. And of course, I promise we'll get to the first theme very, very soon. Here, the melody is now in the left hand, and it of course needs to sing out over and above the right. However, it's the right hand now that continues to provide the rhythm. Again, if you're looking for something with a left hand melody to practice this aspect in parallel, then perhaps Repos d'amour by Henselt, which just happens to also be in the same key. Alternatively, if you have already learned something with a left-hand melody, then dust this off and practice in parallel. One trick I noticed when trying to memorize this was that the right-hand accompaniment shadows sometimes some of the left-hand melody notes or the associated chord. As you can see in bars 26 and 27, where the E flat in the left hand is echoed in the right. This little detail I found helped with memorization. When you're trying to memorize, it always helps to look out for tiny details like this, I think. Notice the A naturals in bars 35 and 36, which are easy to miss if we're not paying attention. And now let's start from the beginning to fill in the gaps. You'll see straight away that the introduction is very similar to the ending. We have this same pattern of chords where we can voice the lower notes. We also have the same challenge here of working out what else to voice. My solution was to go almost always with the lower notes of the chords. I found in bars 5 and 7 there can be a tendency to make the top note of the accompanying chord sound sometimes as if it's part of the melody. To me, this isn't nearly as nice as ensuring that these chords clearly sit within the accompaniment and the melody starts later as written. Where we have the change in harmony in bar 15, I also feel we can really strongly bring this out if we wish to. Then from bars 17 to 20, I feel we need to voice the lower note of the chords. If you look at the slur mark, it sort of seems to say this. However, in bar 24, given the slur goes to the top note, then I think we can voice much more evenly. I'd advise you spend some time playing around with this and decide what's best to your ears. Let's briefly then just take a look at bar 53 where the melody comes back. Because again here to me, it's as much too about making sure we voice the left hand properly. Of course, the right hand will anyway sing out as it's in a much higher register, but don't be afraid to shape it properly. As a final thought, I'd look also carefully at the pedal markings. Now, if you listen to the recording of Paderewski, he uses remarkably little pedal when he plays this. And I have to admit, I sort of prefer a little bit more than he uses, but ultimately, I guess it's a personal choice, so do take some time to look at it, experiment, and see what sounds best to your ears. If you're not already, then please do subscribe to Tommy's Piano Corner. Don't forget to hit that little bell icon so you're notified of new videos as and when they're released. I do thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.